What do highly intelligent people think about all day? Most people believe the answer is obvious. Highly intelligent people probably think about mathematics, science, or complex problems that nobody else understands. But reality may be far stranger. Imagine two people. One is sitting in a car, the traffic light turns green, and a few seconds later, he has already forgotten the moment. The other experiences the exact same situation, but suddenly he wonders why red signals danger around the world, and what invisible systems are necessary for millions of people to drive through cities at the same time. And this is where the mystery begins. Because intelligence often reveals itself in places where we do not expect it. Most people associate it with knowledge or good grades, but some psychologists suspect that it can be recognized somewhere entirely different, in thoughts. This question is more interesting than it initially sounds. In fact, it may reveal something fundamental about human thinking. That is why researchers have been asking a fascinating question for decades. Are there specific thought patterns that appear more frequently among highly intelligent people? What really occupies highly intelligent people when they are alone with their thoughts? Do they think about different things than most people? Or do they simply look at the same subjects in a different way? And if so, what does that reveal about human nature? When psychologists examined their thinking more closely, they noticed something unusual. The difference seemed to lie in what happened after the first answer. When someone explains that a company suddenly became successful, most people accept a simple explanation. Something like a good idea, good leadership, or perhaps just luck. But others think, why did the idea work? Why did others fail with something similar? The same thing happens in everyday life. When someone arrives late to a meeting, many people immediately think of traffic. Others wonder why some people are constantly late, even though they know the consequences. And why they so often use the exact same explanation. That can be exhausting, however. Sometimes you simply want to know what time it is, and your brain starts analyzing what time actually is. Which, unfortunately, rarely helps you be punctual. This may be one of the first differences. Highly intelligent people do not necessarily seem to have better answers. They often spend more time questioning the first answer, but not every difference involves causes and connections. Many studies show something else as well. Highly intelligent people spend an unusual amount of time thinking about possibilities. They look at a situation and see not one possible outcome, but several. Opportunities become visible. Risks as well. That can be helpful, but it can also make decisions more complicated. As a result, the brain begins to recognize connections between areas that appear unrelated at first glance. Suddenly, similar patterns emerge in history, psychology, economics, or even biology. Sometimes legitimately, sometimes only at 3 in the morning. You have probably experienced this feeling yourself. Someone tells a story, and suddenly it reminds you of something completely different. A historical event, or a book, or a situation at work. Even though these things are not actually related. This is exactly how many new ideas emerge. Not necessarily because someone possesses more information, but because they recognize connections that others overlook. In everyday life, this often appears rather unspectacular. Some people see an argument, a stock market crash, or a political conflict as isolated events. Others wonder whether the same human patterns might be hiding behind all of them. And this is where the story suddenly becomes interesting. For a long time, researchers assumed that intelligence was mainly connected to knowledge. But the more closely you look, the less it seems to be about knowledge. Instead, something else becomes noticeable. Certain people remain with the same thoughts for an unusually long time, while others have already moved on to the next topic. But this ability also has a darker side. People who spend a great deal of time thinking about the world even spend a great deal of time thinking about themselves as well. Why did I react that way? Why did I say that? What could I have done differently? Most people know thoughts like these. For some individuals, however, they seem to appear much more frequently. Imagine coming home after a conversation. For many people, the matter is over within a few minutes. Others continue analyzing the conversation hours later, and suddenly remember a sentence they perhaps could have phrased differently. That can be helpful, but it can also easily turn into overthinking. and without warning. A brain that constantly searches for causes, patterns, and connections does not stop at the self. Sometimes this makes a person more understanding, but sometimes it simply makes them tired. And here a second surprise emerges. Greater understanding does not automatically create more peace. In fact, the opposite often seems to be true. Because those who recognize more often discover more uncertainty, more contradictions, and more questions that cannot be answered so easily. And with that, another difference appears. Many people use thinking primarily to eliminate uncertainty. A question arises, an answer is found, and the subject is finished. But for some people, the exact opposite seems to happen. An answer does not end the search. It creates the next question, almost as if curiosity were not a tool, but a permanent state. That may explain why many highly intelligent people are drawn to subjects that can never be fully solved. Questions about meaning, truth, consciousness, time, or even the nature of reality itself. Objectively speaking, this is a strange occupation. After all, many of these questions still have no solution today. Yet that is exactly what makes them so interesting. Most problems disappear once an answer has been found. Some questions, however, seem to remain fascinating, precisely because they cannot be fully solved. This is where philosophy, science, and human curiosity meet. All three begin with the same simple idea. Perhaps there is something we do not understand. The greatest thinkers in history often spent their lives not collecting certainty. They learned to live with open questions. Yet even that does not fully explain what distinguishes their thinking from that of many other people. After everything we have seen, a surprising realization emerges. Highly intelligent people apparently do not spend their days thinking about completely different things than everyone else. They also think about relationships, success, mistakes, future plans, and the challenges of everyday life. The difference, therefore, does not seem to lie in what people think about. It lies in when they stop. Most thoughts end where a usable explanation has been found, but some people continue exactly at that point. They question the explanation, then the assumption behind it, and eventually even the question itself. Perhaps that explains something unusual about many of the smartest people in history. They were often not impressive because they found answers more quickly. They were impressive because they could live with uncertainty for longer. Those who see more possibilities also see more things that could go wrong. Those who understand human behavior better often discover more contradictions. And those who spend longer thinking about open questions inevitably encounter the limits of their own knowledge. That is why high intelligence sometimes looks like a superpower from the outside, and more like extra work for the brain from the inside. So have we been asking the wrong question all along? Perhaps the real question is not what highly intelligent people think about, but why they do not stop thinking, where most others are already satisfied, because that is where the real difference seems to lie. Many people search for answers. Others enter a process in which every answer creates new questions. That is why high intelligence often looks like knowledge from the outside. In reality, it may begin much more often with something else. With the inability to simply leave a simple answer alone.